MOBAPAD have now released the full specifications for the M12 HD and M12 Pro Joy-Cons, and I think we might have been wrong. Oh, and also, we actually have direct communication with MOBAPAD here. I'm going to quote them at the end of this video, so stay tuned. Now, I want to reiterate, on the old Joy-Cons, the M6 HDs were the top tier. That was their best, their flagship models. However, now the M12 HDs are the cheaper ones at $89.99, and the M12 Pros are $99.99, so $10 more for the Pros. And I assumed that the Pros would be better because they're more expensive. But yeah, I think we might be wrong there. It looks like the M12 HDs are better. But let's look at these specs. So they've provided us this nice side-by-side sheet. So let's just go through it. Joysticks, we've got TMR glide sticks. The glide sticks are effectively silicon dishes at the bottom of the cone of the joystick. So basically, as you move the joystick around the edge of the gate, the edge of the cone of the joystick rubs around a silicon dish, which makes it hyper smooth. This is actually what's used inside the official Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controller, and it feels amazing, and MOBAPAD's Chitu 2 controller. So we are getting that here as well, but of course we're getting TMR joysticks. So if you don't know what those are, much higher resolution than Hall effect or potentiometer sticks, super accurate, low dead zones, minimal power consumption as well. They are like top tier joysticks, and both models are getting this. So both the HD and the Pro get TMR glide sticks. That's wicked. Buttons, it says both of them get mechanical buttons. Now this time they don't specify what they are. They haven't said Omron, which is actually a brand of micro switches, which are like top tier as well, 10 million click lifespans. This is what was featured on the M6 HD. This time it just says mechanical buttons, so maybe they've just gone generic, so you're gonna get about 5 million click lifespan. But who knows, it could still be Omrons. It just seems weird that they've not specified that here. They both just say mechanical buttons. Okay. Now we've got one that's a bit different. We've got the M button on the M12 HD and a C button on the M12 Pro. Now I know why this is, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later because MOBAPAD have talked to me and confirmed it. Let's continue through this because most of it is the same. So turbo function, yes. If you don't know what turbo is, quick recap. Basically, if you press and hold a button, it will do that action for you multiple times as if you've pressed it multiple times, or it could be even reversed. So you press it once and then it will just input that button for you multiple times. Then you press it again and it stops it. So they both have a turbo function of some kind. Now we've got macro programming, yes, for both as well. So macros, if you don't know, means that you can assign a macro, so a multiple button input to one button, generally the back paddles, right? So I can go like up, down, left, right, A, B, ZL, ZR, and that's it, and assign it to the back paddle. And then when I press that back paddle, it will do those series of inputs. So both of them have that feature. Triggers, we've got mechanical micro switch triggers in both of them. Again, don't know if that's generic or Omron, they haven't specified. Now's another different one. We've got vibration. We've got HD rumble in the M12 HDs, as the name suggests, right? But in the more expensive M12 Pro, we've got standard, which means just old school big swinging motor, not linear HD rumble. Again, I know why this is, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Another difference here, motion control. The M6 HDs have 6-axis gyro, which is what the Switch 1 had, and the M12 Pros, the more expensive ones, now get 9-axis gyro, which is what the Switch 2 has. Again, I know why this is. We'll talk about that in a minute. NFC support, yes to both. MOBAPAD app support, yes to both. And power saving mode, yes to both. They've also clarified that yes, the RGB LEDs can be turned off. So if you don't like the MOBAPAD logo, which I'm not overly a fan of myself, you can turn it off. And it looks like it's one of those etched plastic things, so it's actually like the RGB LED is behind the plastic, which is a massive win. So when you turn it off, it's almost invisible. They show that via an image here, so you've got color, solid or off, and this is going to be great because you can just turn it off, save battery life, and then you'll barely even see the logo there. So it is actually a win. I'm happy with that. Now there's a couple of other specs they've not listed in that chart, And I'll talk about those in a minute as to why I know why the HD and the Pro are different. But I did just want to touch on that power saving mode. So I see a lot of confusion about this online, and I just want to sort of air my opinion on this. So it says exclusive power save mode, and this is on both HD and Pros. One press, or it looks like a switch, so one slide, to stop the Switch 2 from powering the controller and preserve battery life. So effectively what this means, I believe, is when you put the Switch in sleep, it's still kind of on, right? And if you've got the M12s on, either one of them on, it could potentially be leaching the battery from the main system to charge them, right? Because they're magnetically attached and they charge wirelessly, like via that magnetic like attachment, right? So if you've left your Switch in sleep, over time, as the controller batteries start to lower in battery life, the main system is going to try and power them. So it's going to start sending power to the Joy-Cons. This is going to stop that. So you just slide it down to off, and then that's going to make the Switch think there's no Joy-Cons attached, and it's just not going to leach the power away from the main system. That's what it looks like. It's kind of annoying, in my opinion, that you've got a physical switch for that, because you're going to have to remember on both sides to, like, you know, turn them off. If you're just using them like and putting them down for a few minutes or whatever, it's not going to matter. It's just mainly like for long periods of time. If you know you're going to be popping your Switch down in sleep mode for like 10 hours or something, then you probably want to turn them onto the off position. Now, obviously, if you want to make sure that the controllers, the Joy-Cons, the M12s are actually charging, like so that you've charged everything up to 100% and you want to just keep playing, then you want to leave this on, because otherwise, as you continue playing, the Switch's system battery is going to remain high, and then your Joy-Cons are going to drop in charge, and then eventually they will just run out of battery because they're not passively charging, right? So whilst you're using the device, I'd leave it on. Whilst you're leaving the device in sleep, I would turn them off. I hope that's a bit of clarification there as to what I think is going on there. Now's the time to talk about what is going on with the HDs and the Pros. Why are they so different? Why has the HD's got HD rumble but 6-axis gyro and an M button? And why have the Pros got a C button, 9-axis gyro, and old rubbish rumble? What's going on here? Well, let me clarify that for you. Or actually, I should say, let MOBAPAD clarify that for you, because here is the direct communication I've had with them, and this is what they've told me. So they say, we have now officially released the full specs, and I've noticed the audience seems to be more hyped about the Pro version, but actually we are excited by the HD version. The HD version, which they call the Hero product, this is the one that has a more comprehensive feature set, including HD rumble, and offers the best price to performance ratio for gamers. The Pro version, it runs on the Switch 2 protocol, Generation 2 protocol. Because the R&D costs were high, the price point is naturally higher. Whilst it does offer 9-axis motion sensing and wake up, it lacks HD rumble. So while the Pro is technically impressive, the HD version is the true bang for buck that we want to highlight. So they're actually saying that the M6 HDs at the lower price point are better, right? That's what they're saying. So what seems to be happening here is the M12 Pro are a higher cost because they've spent so much research and development into the Switch 2 protocol that they just had to bump the price up there. But it's clear that they've not actually managed to crack HD Rumble 2. We've seen that with their MOBAPAD Chitu 2 Pro controller, which also doesn't have HD Rumble 2, right? That didn't have HD Rumble 2, which the Switch 2 has. So what we're getting here is the 9-axis gyro, which is a Switch 2 feature. So they've cracked that one. They've also, what it looks to be, is have native wake from sleep. So that's actually quite important. So it looks to be native wake from sleep, like the actual Switch 2 sleep. And also there's a C button, which also looks to be the actual C button. So you'll press it and it won't just be a macro workaround like we've seen with other Switch 2 controllers on the market currently. This looks like it's actually going to be the proper protocol here. So So whilst it's got those two things, which are actually really impressive, or three things I should say, 9-axis gyro, very impressive if you're a motion control user, right? You've got true wake from sleep, and you've got the actual chat button. So those things are very important, and maybe that's more important to you than HD Rumble. But it looks like the thing that they couldn't get, they just couldn't crack, was HD Rumble 2, so they've done away with it. And I reckon HD Rumble 1 doesn't work with the Switch 2 protocol, and that's why it's just absent. And it seems like the HD versions, the M12 HD, are actually using the Switch 1 protocol. So there's not going to be wake from sleep. And if there is, it's going to be one of those janky workarounds where you have to pair them in a certain way, take off a Joy-Con, attach a Joy-Con for it to then actually work, which we've seen again with other Pro-style controllers for the Switch 2 that are using a Switch 1 protocol. That also makes sense as to why it's got HD Rumble 1, and also why it doesn't have a chat button, because it would just end up being a macro workaround. So instead, we've got a dedicated macro button, and the macro buttons is going to let you do stuff like program macros. Whereas I actually think on the M12 Pros, there's no macro button, there's no M button. So it looks like programming macros is actually going to have to be done via the app. I would assume that turbo will be the same, but it does lead me to wonder about the back paddles, the GL and GR buttons. On the HDs, because they're on a Switch 1 protocol, you will have to use that M button to assign button swaps, turbo or macros to those back paddles. But if the M12 Pro Joy-Con are using Switch 2 protocol, which is why we got the chat button, 9-axis gyro and wake from sleep, does that also mean we have native back paddle support so that you can actually assign game profile specific back paddle assignments via the Switch itself, exactly like what is found in the Pro 2 controller? And what I mean by that is if you press and hold the home button whilst you've got a Pro 2 controller assigned, you can scroll down and there's literally GL and GR. You can assign one button to that back paddle and another button to the other back paddle, and it will remember that per game profiled. So every time you change a user, it will remember your own specific assignment to that game. You don't have to change it every time. You assign it once and then it remembers it. If it has that, I actually think I'm going to stick with the M12 Pros, because that is a huge win. Even though there's no HD Rumble, which is a massive loss. I would take HD Rumble 1 over no HD Rumble, but those back paddle assignments per game saved profiles is really handy to me, specifically me. That's what I really like about the Pro 2 controller. Whereas on the M12 HD, you will have to assign it yourself. It won't remember it per game, and it will just take over the whole controller. No matter what you're playing, no matter what user has them on, you will have to manually change it every single time you want to change it. So it looks like it could be like that. Now, there's another glaring issue here is there's no mention of mouse mode. Now, it looks like, judging by the pictures, that it could be there. Specifically, the picture that says ergonomic design makes it very clearly look like there's the mouse mode sensor in the middle, right? It even looks like we've got PTFE glide pads on the top and the very bottom of the Joy-Cons. But I can't be certain here because on other pictures that are more like rendered looking, it looks like they're just filled with plastic. So it doesn't look like they will actually be usable, but I can't say for sure. Like, I just can't say. And it's very weird that they've not mentioned it at all. So it looks like there might not be any mouse mode feature here. Now, I would assume again that if there is mouse mode, it will be on the M12 Pros because they're using the Switch 2 protocol. I would assume that the HDs won't get mouse mode, but I actually think neither of them is going to get mouse mode, sadly. So if you're going to want to use mouse mode, you're going to have to use the official Joy-Con. So at the end of this, which one's the best one? It's so hard to say because it all comes down to what features you want. If you are a diehard, you must have HD Rumble, well then get the HDs. Well done, they're cheaper, right? But if you really like motion control, then you absolutely should get the Pros because they got the Switch 2's 9-axis motion controls. If, and I say this is a big if because I'm assuming here, judging on the fact that they've actually got Switch 2 protocol and there's no M button on the controller, right? If the M12 Pros can actually assign the GL and GR back paddles natively to the system so that it thinks it's like a Switch 2 Pro controller and it remembers it per game profile, for me, that's a big, big win. And I'd probably just be kind of annoyed, but take the lack of HD rumble there and go for the Pros. But it does look like the best value for money here is the M12 HDs. You're getting basically identical specs just here. The only thing is again, it looks like the HDs are going to need some janky workaround to get Wake from Sleep, or it might not even have it. And of course, you're getting lesser gyro. So if you don't care about gyro, that's fine. But yeah, it just seems to be those things. I'm really, really, really curious now. This has now brought up more questions than answers for me, because I thought it was going to be a clear across the board. The Pros are the best ones, they're more expensive, and the HD ones are the slightly more budget ones with like lesser features. But they both have excellent features just depending on what you prefer, right? I don't know what to think. I can't wait to get hands-on with these, and I'll get hands-on with both of them so I can test them, see which ones do what, and actually be able to get to the bottom of this as to which one is best for you. But yeah, it doesn't look like what had happened previously where we had a very clear winner, which was the M6 HDs, and then we had the lower ones with M6Ss. This time they're kind of on par, but it just depends on which features you prefer. They even said themselves that the HD is the best bang for the buck and their kind of like main focus. I think they went down the rabbit hole of trying to get the Switch 2 protocol to work. Then they started stumbling into issues with like HD Rumble 2 and stuff like that, and not being able to work with HD Rumble 1 because it was like, you know, protocol from the Switch 2 and the Switch 1 like conflicting or whatever. And then they just went, you know what, we spent so much money researching this, we still have to put a product out. So here's that one. But then here's one with the Switch 1 protocol as well that has HD Rumble. That's what it seems like from my perspective. Anyway, that's enough rambling. Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments. Which one do you prefer? You're going to go for the HDs or the Pros? Or you're just going to wait until I get them and then do a proper review on both of them and tell you which one is the best one? That's probably a good move. But anyway, let me know if you've enjoyed today's video. Like this video, subscribe, become a member, and you get to chat to us over on our private Discord. And I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.